Well, good morning, everybody. How nice of you to come to the meditation party. Hi, sweetie. Anybody here for the first time? 1, 2, 3, 4. How did you all get in the same section? It's the dedicated section for newcomers. So what we're going to do is a little chanting here, sing at the beginning, and then I'll do a guided meditation. Then we will have Jim Dalton do some movement. Then I guess I'm going to do announcements. Avi is homesick, and then I'm going to give what I think of as the quintessential dharma talk today. Right. These are the secret core of the teachings. They've only been, I love your reactivity, they've only been repeated 400 million times. But they're very useful, so. Have you noticed that life is really unstable? I keep noticing, and it keeps sinking in more. And I have a stepdaughter who's graduating this year, off to college, and a stepson who's got another 3 years in school. It's my third time through with kids, so it's remarkable, you know. They're so little, and then they're so big, and then you're hoping they'll text. You know, it's been 3 days, but it's time. And my stepson is studying European, what we call world history here. And he's a bright, sensitive, caring young man. And he has very much the same attitude to history that I had when I was his age, which was, it's kind of semi-interesting, pretty meaningless stories. And what has come to be for myself over this next 55 years since I was doing that is to realize that those are stories about real human beings. When despots came to power in the past, it was like when despots come to power now. When environmental systems collapsed in the past, it's like when environmental systems collapse now. Real people, mommies and daddies, suffer. I went to India the first time when I was in my early 20s, and I thought that I took a lot of pictures of people, and there were those people living in cardboard boxes and tin shacks, and it was so colorful to me, so amazing. It touched me. But then when I went back later, when I'd had children, I realized that those were families. Those were families. And so, and of course, they could be me or they could be you. They are you and me. So that I'm saying all this in introducing the refuge is, where can we possibly take refuge in this world which is so unstable? And what the Buddha proposed, and really all spiritual teachings over the millennia, have proposed something like this, which is to take refuge in that which is awake. To take refuge in the all-knowing, all-conscious, in the consciousness of the universe, which manifests through each of us. If we were of a theistic bent, we would say it's taking refuge in God. It's that mystery which is behind everything. And so the refuge in the Buddha, that which is awake, And it's not something far away, it's right here. And then the Dharma, what reveals itself? What do we discover when we're actually present and awake? Well, we discover the laws of the universe. We discover the laws of physics and chemistry, but also the law of karma and the fact that everything is impermanent and so on. And then Sangha, we are the living earth. Each of us we are it. We are the Douglas firs and the dogs and cats and whales, and we're all this thing, mysterious life that comes out of the earth. And so to take refuge in that integral wholeness is one meaning of Sangha. Another is to look around for a moment. These are our friends on the path, and we need each other. We need each other especially when the times get tough. And then there also is the descending lineage of people who have done this practice over now 2,500 years. So we're in good company. And I invite you to join in to the degree you wish. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. Something I've been reminding myself to remember, that I'd like to announce every time, which is at the back of the room there are 4 devices for improving hearing. Should you have any difficulty hearing what's coming from the sound system, that the devices there will be very helpful. And I could show you something quite fun. This is telling you something I've never shown. You ready? Where is the antenna for that? It's right behind the Buddha. So you're getting the message from the Buddha's mouth. It could be, I think it could be in there, but it's kind of cool to have it back there. So, sitting. Hello, Danny. The quintessential ritual taught by the Buddha was this habit, this practice of stopping and sitting down. Over the years, my understanding of why we do this has really simplified. What if it's true that we really are fundamentally the vast, infinite universe? What if that's our true nature? That which existed before the Big Bang. And that a little while ago, a sperm and an egg came together, and then we emerged. And then we went through somebody training, but we emerged with consciousness. It's kind of hard to refute that, right? We did emerge, and then we went through somebody training, and we are, of course, mammals, and we needed to survive. So we got all the accoutrements for surviving. And it's as though I've seen in my lifetime 3 or 4 movies where someone emerges out of a park or out of somewhere who's completely forgotten who they are. They have amnesia. And the whole movie's about, who am I? Who am I really? And that's what we're doing here. We're stopping our usual trying to be satisfied and happy through activity. And we're dropping into just being here. There's lots and lots and lots of strategies of what to do. From the time of the Buddha, we have the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Mindfulness of the body. So notice, there's a body here. It's alive. And in its aliveness, it is full of sensations. The legs and the feet are alive. The hands are alive. The face, what we take to be the face, is alive. Hearing occurs. Breathing in and breathing out. That which connects us intimately with all of life happens. This breathing also began at a particular moment. We call it our birthday. The moment when our mother could no longer breathe for us and we had to take over. We made a huge leap to internal life support. The lungs worked, and they've worked ever since. And breathing in and breathing out will happen until our time here in this incarnation is over. So why not practice being here in this breath that only happens ever in the present moment? It breathes in and it breathes out all by itself. Of course, the mind is conditioned, heavily conditioned. And it's really used to going into a variety of trance states, like the past and the future, into desires and disliking, into restlessness and agitation and sleepy dullness, into doubt, into the rich field of emotions. And our journey into awakening to the Dharma includes all of this. When you discover that the mind has wandered off, simply, very gently return to breathing, to the sensations of breathing in and out. But don't make it a war, don't make it a battle or even a struggle. The awakening process is, once put in motion, inexorable. You start being mindful and more the mind will wake up to the wandering mind. And then come back to the beginning of the next breath. Right here, right now. Kindly, mercifully, gently. One of the main reasons we became the dominant species on the planet is because our minds are not trained, they're built to wander, to think, to create futures, imagined futures, and in a certain way to worry about them so that we could try all kinds of different possibilities on of how to face the next crisis. And this is adaptive to a point, but sometimes it gets overly stimulated, and then we find ourselves, or the mind, worrying, trying to plan how to, ultimately it's how to survive, how to protect my children, how to influence the political world, how to find some refuge. But it's not out there in the world. Because the world is inherently unstable. And that's why we stop like this. Breathe in, breathe out. Observe the mind doing its worrying or planning or liking or disliking. It's planning for the next pleasure. And we practice a simple contentment with it the way it is. It's like this. Each breath has a beginning. It has a rising to fullness. And then a decline. And then it vanishes. This is the essential paradigm of our lives and our world. A lifetime has a beginning. It has a rising to fullness, a blossoming, a decline, and then a vanishing. It's the same for species, nations, empires, projects, our pets, our relationships. In meditation, we become more and more intimate with this natural order. And as we do this, there's grieving to do. And there's awakening. And so the meditation leads to stress management, wonderful relief from stress. Also some psychological and emotional healing. Our lives functioning better, more smoothly. And to living more harmoniously because we recognize the truth. Remarkable that this all emerges from simply sitting and breathing. Breathing in and breathing out. we can practice with the sensations of breathing as our home base. And when the mind is not very agitated, when it's tending towards staying present, we can open that focus up to include the whole body. You could feel, you could know the life, the tingling, vibrating, changing life of your feet and legs, and torso and hands and face and arms. And there at the center of it all, there's this breathing. If you discover tension, sometimes we're prone to furrowing the brow or holding the forehead tense or clenching the jaw or holding the gut tight. None of these efforts have anything to do with waking up. Waking up just happens. It's just our nature to wake up and be present. The experiences that arise during meditation may be of a pleasant variety, or they may be unpleasant. The mind could be calm and quiet, or it could be upset and wild and dissatisfied. It doesn't really matter happens. Our task is to be present and awake, and to recognize that all these phenomena arise by themselves. And also to recognize that it's possible to be peaceful even with the mind being not peaceful. And as we come to the end of this time of resting back into our true nature, why not take a few moments to notice how it's possible to bring awareness into the hands and fingers, into the legs, into hearing, into the eyes, you may be able to be aware of the eyes at the same time as awareness of breathing. And then noticing what it takes to form the intention, to allow the eyes to open. And then it takes a certain effort, a certain commitment to actually put that intention into action. Notice how it happens. You have to there's a willing of the eyelids to open, and sometimes they can be pretty heavy. It takes a little effort to open them. Seeing, and then be mindful of seeing. And then objects. Seeing objects. And then maybe a little stretching. But it's not the stretch of, oh good, the meditation's over, I can stretch. It's the stretching which is done with awareness. There's a certain trick. We get trapped with meditation because we think I'm going to meditate for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or half an hour a day on my cushion. And then it starts sneaking in and you start noticing, oh, right, the shower feels nice, it's warm. Oh, right. And, oh, there's that worry thought, thank you for sharing. And oh, my friend or my partner said this, and there's that feeling that, and you start meditating all the time. It kind of takes over your life, which is a good thing, of course. So the question I'd like to ask at this moment, please raise your hand if you feel more relaxed or basically saner than when you walked in. Please look around. This is not some new, cheesier, spicier, made up yesterday thing. This is ancient practice. And it's so efficient. Efficiency without hurry or tension. How do you like that? Wow, it's downright un-American. It's unmodern as well. So, Mr. Dalton, are you capable of leading the movement again today? Yeah, we're still working. So, enjoy. I'll be back.
So we, hello, is that happening? What did I do? Oh. No. Now it's happening. Did you hear me? How did I do that? Now, can you hear me? Oh, I see. It flipped away from my eyeglasses. It's supposed to be tucked in there. All right, now I can feel here now. So, we get in touch with our feet. Maybe just lift the toes. Let the toes lift and drop. And then move weight into one leg and pour it into the other. This idea of pouring has kind of grown on me for the last year or so. It's how a particular research project started in mindfulness of movement. But getting grounded, just pouring. It takes an image in the mind to understand why are we pouring. It's this gradual process, so you're not spilling all over the table. But the water in your system is sloshing around over on one leg and sloshing around over on the other. So there's a combination of imagery and then interoception. And that's a new word, relatively new word for me. So I trying to find ways of connecting with that word. Let's open a hand and look at it. And then close the hand into a fist and see that as a gesture. We open, and the beginning of the gesture is a movement of 5 fingertips towards the middle of the palm, and we close the hand and we open it. So we have this perception of 5 fingers changing their shape, making a gesture, and then returning to the original shape. Now close your eyes and do the same thing. So we have a gesture happening, closing the hand. Oh, that's interesting sound. Opening the hand, closing the hand with the eyes closed, opening. So there's no perception of the hand. Your eyes aren't organizing and focusing on a part of your body. There's something that you know inside, interoception. You know, you can feel the openness, and you can feel the gradual shifting, and you can feel the closeness, and then open again. And then open your eyes, open both hands, and close them, open, close them. Each one of those is a gesture. Now we're going to do some Qigong, relax the hands, and sink, and the gesture begins, and the gesture ends. And we tie the gesture into breathing, breathing in, breathing out. But let's do it with our eyes closed. So there's a part of our awareness that doesn't need the visual image to coordinate breathing in with the gesture. Sinking down, opening up, breathing in, lifting up, sinking with the eyes. The eyes don't help, don't contribute to the interoception. It comes from another place. Okay. Sinking, open your eyes, lift and open your arms, and embrace the world. Here's the world. It's all out there. Accepting me, I'm accepting it. We got a pretty good thing going here. We can do this with our eyes closed closed also. So we're opening the arms, but not opening the eyes. And we still have that sense of welcoming the outside world. That's the interoception. There's an awareness that's inside without image, without visual image. Okay, take a break. I got to get my thoughts and my tongue and my mouth together with my movement here. Sink and reach overhead and paint a rainbow. Now, image of a rainbow changes the feeling I have about this gesture. If it's just moving the hands, it's just a arc. But if it's a rainbow, it has a little more pizzazz, a little more engagement. More of me is connected to it. And release. Sink, cross the wrists. New sensations, new image, separating clouds. But it's the same integration, integrating interoception, knowing that the hands are crossed, and then we check and look at them. Now close the eyes and cross the hands. We know they're crossed. We know they're reaching up and separating clouds. Once more. Crossing, lifting, separating clouds, opening the eyes. We turn to the side, lift both hands up, and the back hand face forward, the front hand face up. Push and pull. These simple movements are integrating visual, interoception, breathing. If we breathe in and then push, and pause for a second, breathing in, and then push again. In, out. In, out. Once more. Dropping the arms down, pausing, just letting the breath come and go. But that interoception, we can feel sensations throughout the body with no gesture. There's awareness of the body without a gesture. And then a suggestion is made, open the eyes and open the shoulders all the way around. I sometimes call this a water wheel. That creates an image that organizes the different sensations. It's a soft turning of the sockets and the shoulders. So there's effort required, but it's a restful, peaceful effort. Reach across now. Extending upwards, releasing downwards, extending up to the side, lifting the heel. In order for that gesture to take place, there has to be a lot of engagement in one leg while the other leg relaxes. We can differentiate one side of the body from the other. And then gazing at the moon, we turn and a whole different gesture unfolds. And if you feel safe, close your eyes and do this. So that's that inner awareness of position of the body, the inner feeling of the rhythm of the breath. On the descent, there's an exhale. On the lifting, there's an inhale. And they're together. And that synchronization is a completion, a pleasant feeling. Okay, a couple more. Pressing out to the side and front, reaching for the corner. Notice the difference between the sensations in one foot and the other. Where the weight is, lots of engagement, resting on the other side. The intelligence of the body is operating and we're observing it. We're interoceptioning it. We're aware of balance and engagement. Now reach across for my favorite one. Focus in the center of your hand. Let the other hand follow underneath. And we have a cloud drifting across the sky. Switch. A shadow underneath. And something is following this whole gesture. Noticing the beginning. Noticing the path. Staying with it. Staying with it, noticing the change, staying with it and from the beginning all the way across. That feeling of staying is pleasant also. A sense of agency. I can follow with my intention all the way through. And then releasing both hands, turning inward again with your eyes closed. What's the breath doing? How safe do you feel? Balanced with your eyes closed. Open your eyes and sink. Stretch out. Gather all this experience of movement and breathing into one gesture. Organizing, bringing into the center. And then that still center notices the whole thing. And stays with it all the way through. And then relaxing, grateful for all the limbs that still work, and the breathing. Thank you very much.
Danny, before you sit down, you want to do a brief...
Another plug.
About what?
Another plug.
Another plug, right. Well, it's kind of important. Danny Mankin, the one and only.
Good morning, Sangha. Yeah, if you were, any of you were here last week, so I don't have to repeat it. Yeah, so, well, I guess I do repeat. I'm losing my mind. I'm doing a play about somebody who loses their mind. It was my sister. And it was a form of dementia called FTD. You may have heard of it. There was a 60-minute special about it. It's a particularly nasty strain. But, the nice part about, if there's a good part about this, she was a clown. And so we were doing a play about it. 9 years ago, we started working on a play about what would happen if a clown lost her mind or got dementia. And 2 years into the process, she got dementia. So life imitates art. So as a sort of legacy thing to my sister, I did a Kickstarter campaign. I raised $20,000. Some of you may have contributed. Thank you if you did. And the play is now going up at the Headwaters Theater. It opens on Thursday, and it's called Going Down in Flames. And it's so it's got clowning, and it's got a little bit of sadness to it as well. So I just wanted to invite you all there. If financially it's difficult for you to go to a play, we have a dress rehearsal this Wednesday at the Headwaters at 7:30. If you're feeling a little more flush, we have a fundraiser for the Frontal Temporal Dementia Association on Thursday. Then it'll run for 2 weeks. If you go on the brown, and there are flyers out there. Thank you so much for helping me with this. So it's been a very emotional journey for me, and I want to say that the meditation practice has kept me sane through all this. It's just staying present to what is instead of drifting into the past. But it's been a great stabilizer in this time. But I would appreciate it if anyone could come. There's also a discount if you go to Brown Paper Tickets and you enter the code word clown, you get $10 off. The normal fee is $28 and it goes down to $18. So, and then there's the dress rehearsal if you want to come for free. And there are flyers out there. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Danny. Lora Dow, a member of the distinguished member of the PIMC board.
I think distinguished means old. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Hi, everybody. Robert asked me to talk briefly about Dana, but I think before we talk about Dana, we need to talk about why we're all here. For some of you, you've been coming for years and years. For some of you, this might be your first day. But why you came the first time and why you continue to come, I'm hoping that's an evolving thing, right? Maybe you came just because you wanted to learn how to meditate. Maybe you came because you thought it'd be good for your stress levels or something. But maybe over time, as you've been here, you found community. You found friends. You found people who are interested in the same things you are. You found a place to just relax and to think deeper into the nature of things. Whatever brings you here, I hope that there's some element of community to it. And what I like to remind myself, and I'm hoping I can remind you as well, is that community is not just a noun. I think it's also a verb. Community isn't something that just happens magically. It isn't something you just partake in. You're actively part of it to be part of a community. You're giving, you're participating, you're interacting. What you put into it directly affects the nature of that community and what you get back out of it. So I encourage all of you, as you think about your participation, wherever you are on that scale, if it's your first Sunday or if it's, you've been here for longer than you can remember, think about how you can be a greater part of this community. That can mean volunteering. That can mean taking a class or just being more involved in the conversations that happen here. But it also can mean giving. It can mean giving of your financial resources. This place, runs on a lot of love, but it also takes some cash, right, to make some things happen, to keep everything as nice and as welcoming, to pay the wonderful teachers who give so much of their time and energy to help share this knowledge with us. So I would encourage you to think about on a regular basis how you can make that donation, that giving, part of your experience of this community as well. We're all in different situations, right? So I'm not going to at all think about what it should be, but think about what it means to you and how you can deepen your commitment to it, to this community through your giving. There is a Donna Bowl up front. That's just basically like you can drop a check or money in there. You can do it in the back of the room as well. But we also have this online giving where you can do a monthly automatic donation. For some of you, that might be a really easy way to do that. I would encourage you to visit our website to see that. If you have any questions about that, what the money goes for, how it's used, please don't hesitate to reach out to one of the teachers, to myself, to a board member. And I believe, I don't know if it's up there yet, but pretty soon we're going to start to be really open about posting our budget and where we are year to date and that sort of thing. So you can really just see this is what it takes to run this place, and are we at where we need to be, behind, ahead, whatever the case may be. For some of you, that's really helpful to know where we are. So thank you so much, and please enjoy this community.
Thank you, Laura. One little addition is that we actually have an iPad with card reader, so you can. I guess other announcements. One is, Avi, if you're watching Get Better soon, Avi does just a great job of creating a handout each week that has all the events that are coming. He's been off. So that won't happen. But I invite you, take a look at the website. Take a look at the front page of the website. There is so much happening here, so many nights a week. Ongoing gatherings. Gregory Malouf is going to start a Wednesday evening, every Wednesday gathering. So we'll have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Doyle and Kirsten are doing NVC, Nonviolent Communication, and it's really hopping. So you can come and nourish yourself so many different times during the week. Tuesday morning, there's also a group. Okay. I'm having a problem too. Isn't it weird how these things will sometimes say, I didn't quite hear you. It's like, wait, I forgot you were listening to begin with. I have one of those, a little gizmo. I don't know, is it paranoia? I don't know. But I have a little gizmo on my iPad that covers the camera. Because among the things I heard from someone who's very deeply engaged in tech is that when you're reading, sometimes they're monitoring where your eyes go and where they stop and where they, when you look at a page of advertising, where does your eye go in the advertising? That's a little intrusive, I think. So it's funny. I had to do a Skype call over my iPad And for the life of me, I couldn't get the camera to work. And then finally I realized, oh right, it's covered. This little plastic thing. And just let it across. So, I was sitting early this morning, as usual on a Sunday morning, thinking, so what should I talk about? Unfortunately, the talk of last week, which was the talk about the path, the broadcast failed. So we didn't get to save that one, unfortunately. But it's really always the same talk. I hope it's not too obvious, but there's, and I already said it this morning. What if it's true that we are utterly temporary manifestations of the great mystery of consciousness in the universe? And that all we have to do is wake up and remember, oh right, you know how it is when you have a dream at night, and sometimes dreams can be pretty bad, or pretty good for that matter. But you wake up from some intense dream and then you realize, oh phew, that was a dream. This is my, quote, real life. What if this is another level of that? That all the world is a stage and all the men and women are merely players. They have their exits and their entrances. And we're playing our parts. We play them until we disappear. And we tend to forget that. We don't forget it deep down inside, but we tend to forget it in our day-to-day actions. So, the Buddha said, people wanted to talk with the Buddha about all kinds of things. You know, what's the creation of the universe? Does a Buddha exist after they die? And all kinds of things. And what's the origin of beings? And he said, I teach only one thing. Suffering, the causes of suffering, and the end of suffering. And the path that leads to the end of suffering. And he was pretty darn adamant about that. People tried to, what about God? Does God exist? He said, I teach suffering, the cause of suffering, and the end of suffering. And the path that leads to the end of suffering. And then, are you suffering? And there was of course people have analyzed these talks endless different ways. There was a pattern that he followed. One was to be sure people had eaten and had enough to drink. Because it's pretty hard, when your survival needs are not met, it's pretty hard to pay much attention to anything else. And then he would have them express what they were curious about or what they were troubled by. And he'd do a really good job of listening. And then he would meet them there and then ask the question, are you suffering? And of course lots of us would say, no, I'm not. I know the part that I disliked most about the Dharma when I ran into it in my 20s was they talked about suffering all the time. Meanwhile, and I just didn't want to, I was suffering because of what I'd done wrong or what somebody else had done wrong. It wasn't because disappointment was intrinsic to life, because I was going to get there sometime and get out of it all. So most people don't get interested in meditation at all until I think of kind of we've run into the wall with a nose or a door has slammed or something. That if we have strategies for happiness, and the primary strategy for happiness in modernity is consumption. And unfortunately, there are so many of us that our consumption, our increasing consumption, actually puts our life support system, the earth, at great risk. Not that the earth's at great risk, right? The earth's perfectly safe, but the life support system for ourselves and other creatures. So we keep trying that, trying to consume, and maybe it's in a relationship, and maybe it's in children, and maybe it's when the children finally get into school and we can breathe again, and maybe it's when they graduate, and then, I miss them, and maybe it's in that job, maybe it's in the vacation, but none of them quite do it. Interesting. So, suffering, the cause of suffering, and the end of suffering, which was also the first talk the Buddha ever gave. And I want to continue with a poem. I've been repeating this fairly often lately, and it's the poem. Oh, my book is at the final editor, the fine editing. 3 weeks from now it goes to the publisher. And I wrote to Jennifer Welwood and asked her if she would allow me to quote this poem in its entirety on the chapter on the Eightfold Path, and we've had a lovely correspondence. It's really very sweet. So this is what I think. I describe it. I think of it as a bracing poem. It's you get up in the morning and you're kind of groggy, and you take the cold water and go and splash it in your face. This is a spiritually bracing poem. My friends, let's grow up. Let's stop pretending we don't know the deal here. Or if we truly haven't noticed, let's wake up and notice. Look, everything that can be lost will be lost. It's simple. How could we have missed it for so long? Let us grieve our losses fully like ripe human beings, but please, let's not be so shocked by them. Let's not act so betrayed as though life has broken her secret promise to us. Impermanence is life's only promise to us. That's a line, isn't it? Impermanence is life's only promise to us. And she keeps it with ruthless impeccability. To a child she seems cruel, but she's only wild. And her compassion is exquisitely precise. Brilliantly penetrating, luminous with truth, she strips away the unreal to show us the real. This is the true ride. Let's give ourselves to it. Let's stop making deals for a safe passage. There isn't one anyway, and the cost is too high. We are not children anymore. The true human adult gives everything for what cannot be lost. Let's dance the wild dance of no hope. That's a kind of snappy last line, isn't it? Her compassion is exquisitely precise. Brilliantly penetrating, luminous with truth, she strips away the unreal, impermanent, to show us the real. This is the true ride. Let's give ourselves to it. Let's stop making deals for a safe passage. There isn't one anyway, and the cost is too high. We are not children anymore. The true human adult gives everything for what cannot be lost. Let's dance the wild dance of no hope. I don't believe that means let's become hopeless. I think it means let us recognize that hopefulness and hopelessness are mental states that come and go, and that reality is beyond that. Reality just is. Just thought of one of my teachers, Matt Flickstein, around questions of this ilk, and he was very helpful. Life is neither meaningful nor meaningless. It just is. We struggle to make it meaningful. And then sometimes it feels like it is, and sometimes but it just is. Please consider the ways in which you experience suffering. Just to list a few. Worrying. Who in this room worries? Worrying. We have our various mood challenges. Depression. Despair. And a whole range of worry strategies. How about self-esteem issues? Please raise your hand if you're fairly convinced that there's something wrong with your body. Right? It should be different. This one shouldn't have this 10 pounds of dangerous extra weight. There's a subtle one, or subtle like a sledgehammer in a way. Who is of the impression that you're not really very good at meditation? That's a really crazy one. Let me speak to that for a second. Almost everyone who comes to meditation, and I meet people who've been meditating for decades, who are practicing with a misunderstanding. And the misunderstanding is that when I'm meditating properly, I should be in bliss. Maybe the body has fine tingling, maybe there's bright lights, maybe the world completely falls away, maybe my heart is open and I feel like I'm the Buddha of the future, and we have these experiences. I mean, it happens to us in meditation that we somehow transcend the body, and we transcend fears of the future and regret about the past, and then we have an experience like that, and maybe it goes on for a few minutes or an hour, or maybe if we're really unlucky, it goes on for some days. And then we get the idea that's what meditation is. And then we struggle to get back to that. One time, a long time ago, 25 years ago, I was on a retreat actually with Ajahn Sumedho. Some of you have heard me speak of him. And on that retreat, I was in the middle of a very bad, painful, awful divorce with a custody battle, and it was one of the worst times in my life. And I went on that retreat, and it was a place called Cloud Mountain, which is still existed. And there were a set of stairs, which later on went with big stones. And I was out walking, doing walking meditation, and between one step and the next, the mind went quiet, concentrated, just, and I continued on up the steps to my walking place. And I walked back and forth for an hour in this absolute ease. And think of this, here I am, anguished, am I going to lose my kids? And what do I do? And then, so an hour, and then the bell rang. I went down very easily, completely concentrated, down to the Dharma hall. And for another hour, there was just ease. And then the bell rang for lunch, and I thought, boy, no, I'm not attached to this. It's okay. If it goes away, it's all right. And came back after lunch, gone. Guess what happened in the next walking period? Back to the steps. Stepping. That one rock, it happened here. So, what would be a more sensible, wiser approach? Well, rather than defining a good meditation, a successful meditation, as one which is peaceful, spacious, loving, what if we were to define it as a really good meditation is one in which there is awareness of what's happening? And this particular meditation is colored by fear, anxiety, loneliness, despair. This one is this one. There's a lot more concentration, or this one I'm just kind of muddling through. This one there's no concentration at all. The mind is wandering and coming back. What if we define that as perfect practice? But the fact is, I still spend my time, measurable amount of time, and I'm sitting like this, and my intention is to wake up. What's the mind? Oh, could someone close those windows? What's the mind doing? What's the body doing? What is the truth of this moment? I love that sound a lot, and it didn't used to happen this way. It's part of aging. There's a greater difficulty filtering out sounds with distraction. It's interesting. So we move in the direction as we mature in our practice toward a willingness to be with the mind and the body and life circumstances as they are. And what happens when we do that is that the anguish tends to come into being, we see it come into being, and then it disappears. It disappears. And then, in fact, we do wind up being able to exist in much more ease, just as a byproduct of accepting things as they are. How else do we suffer? Physical pain, illness. I saw this happen for my parents, and it's certainly happening for me. My extended friendship network has people getting sick and dying. I have a friend who's I guess he's my age, and he's always has such a positive outlook on life, and over the last 4 years his wife has descended into one form of cancer after another, and we don't know now whether she'll survive this next bout. But that's happening more frequently, and so it's harder to say, oh yeah, that happened somewhere on the planet, but not here. But it really is happening here. So, what I'm speaking of here is the encounter with dukkha, with unsatisfactoriness. Remember in the mythology, the story of the Buddha, he's born into wealth and success, and pleasure, and the Hindu gods are looking for a Buddha. They're looking for someone who can teach them, and so they send him these messengers, and they send the messengers in the form of a sick person, a very aged person, and a corpse. And they shake his denial because he'd been shielded from all that. And though, of course, it's mythology and nobody can really be shielded from it, many of us, especially those of us with tremendous privilege, have been shielded from it a lot. So we too have that those encounters. My mother had a really bad stroke, dislocated her left shoulder in the first few days. It was dislocated for the rest of her life, and it was like this. And she had all this proprioceptive and pain nerves intact, but she couldn't release the muscle nerves. And so she was in constant pain of a dislocated shoulder for 8 years. And she was in the hospital and a nursing home in Canada. And I would visit her, and oh my goodness, it was such an encounter with sickness, old age, and death. So, this speaking in this way, the intention of it is to bring to mind, this kind of beats up against our denial. Wait, I don't want to hear this, I'm going to the game this afternoon, I don't want to have a bummer, you know. Let me speak one other avoidance of denial. We stay pretty busy. And one of the reasons for staying busy is because we don't want to stop long enough to feel what's actually happening, which is, there's something, as Ruth Denison said many times, Dalink, there's always a leak in the canoe. Now, one of the other things that we do to avoid the leak in the canoe is these. And intoxicants of all kinds, mind-altering substances. And if I hadn't run into the Dharma in India in 1971, I was on the greased slide heading down into full-blown addiction. On both sides of my family of origin, there was not one person who wasn't alcoholic. 8 aunts and uncles on one side and 7 on the other, of my parents. And when I went to India, I'd been living with my girlfriend in Europe for 2 years, and we always had at least a bottle of wine at dinner. I mean, 50-cent French wine with pop tops was actually very good wine. And we'd been introduced to Afghani hashish that had found its way into Europe. So, you know, every day, certainly, some instant altered state to make the evening more interesting, or really to make the evening less dukkha, less conscious. So, then when I got to India and wound up, because of a lot of depression that happened when I was there, I wound up going on a meditation retreat and made the discovery that in meditation I could experience greater clarity of mind and presence than I'd ever known. Well, that's not true. I knew it on skis at high speed and dangling on a rope and climbing a glacier early in the morning. I had had moments of simple awakeness through exertion. But to have that just be the baseline of experience had never happened. So that was how I got hooked on the Dharma with that first 10-day retreat and desperation. So there's dukkha. And unless we acknowledge the dukkha in our lives, we can't begin to get better. We can't begin to become healthy in a way. Just, it's funny, the thoughts that emerge. I worked in drug and alcohol treatment for 4.5 years at a place called Springbrook. It used to be Springbrook out in Newburgh. The patients were mostly physicians from around the country. And I taught meditation as part of it. Why did I bring that up? There was a reason. Isn't it interesting when the mind does that? Just, maybe it'll come back. Oh yeah, I got training and I was part of some interventions. And what does one do in an intervention when one has a loved one whose life is crumbling? Of course, they can't see it because the primary symptom of addiction is denial. And we're addicted to whether we're into substances or not, we're addicted to stimulation and overwork and consumption in every possible way. And so the way that the interventions worked, and I was so impressed with the skill of these people that I worked with, was they'd gather together the team, the family, and in the case of these physicians, it would usually include a representative of the medical board. And then the person would be tricked to show up in a room with 10 or 15 people who have had at least a couple of hours training ahead of time that what they're going to do is to say this: I love you, and I need you to know that the other day when I found you asleep in the car, having thrown up on the seat, I decided to leave you there, and this has happened many, many times. And you always deny it when I speak about it, but it's true. I'm giving you the mirror here, it's true. And if you don't go into treatment, I'm leaving you. Or, and this was the big heavy hammer in these circumstances, and the head of the medical board would say, and John, Jane, and you'll never practice medicine again unless you do this 3-month program. And it's such an encounter with, it's the heavenly messengers. And it's done lovingly, and the ones that I participated in, a lot of anger, but like reality was really, and then they went into treatment, and after a few days, it was remarkable how, wow, thanks for doing that in some cases. So the world may give us that feedback. We may get it that our distractions really come at a very high cost because we're not stopping to turn inward. Another form we can do this in is over-involvement with the world. We can be over-involved with the company that we're running or we've created, or we can get sufficiently terrified by the news and by the politics that we lose our ground and we become quite crazed and spend lots and lots of time revving ourselves up. And it takes us outside our zone of competence in a way. We lose track of that, and then we lose track of our lovingness and our kindness and we actually do harm to ourselves and others by overindulging. I have to be careful with that one myself. I can. I was at a board meeting. I forget. I needed to get to something on my iPad, and I robotically went in and pushed CNN. It's my drug of choice. So, and I laughed out loud at the time, saying, "Whoa, wait a minute!" It's because it's so habitual. Let me get my fix of the craziness. So, dukkha, unsatisfactoriness. There's something in us that has to wake up to it. And sometimes the world increases the signal so much we get sick or something. And so we can't avoid it. And that's when people walk in the front door here usually, or they come on a retreat. That's another. It gets bad enough that someone's willing to take a week or 10 days or 12 days and stop. And I should put in a plug. July, there's still a few places left on the retreat at in Nelson at Mountain Waters. And then again in July, I'm teaching a retreat at Brighton Bush. An opportunity to stop. Then, what a kindness. What a kindness to ourselves and our loved ones and the world if we're willing to stop. Right? To stop and pay attention and ask the fundamental question, who am I? Who am I and what am I supposed to be doing, really? What can I do in these few moments that are left in my life? What can I do that will be good for me and good for others? And not what's robotic. I say sometimes that spiritual discipline is not anything like I thought. Spiritual discipline is when we listen deeply enough to know what we really, 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 really want to do. And then to do it. But what I really want to do, or I love to do this, almost always it's just conditioned, striving to feel safe, or to feel satisfied, or to feel competent, which is very superficial. It's not, I really want to rest, Ruth Dennison again, darling, rest in the beauty of your being, which isn't improve yourself so you'll be worth loving. It's rest in the extant beauty of your being, in the fact that you are humanity. You are the brilliance and the loving and compassion, and you have the capacity of hating and jealousy and fear and terror and lying, and that's who we are. That's what we are. But to rest in it and to be conscious, then we get to act out more of the wholesome. So then, if we're so fortunate to get that, then we start paying attention and we start noticing the dukkha, the suffering. We learn that we can actually counterintuitively turn toward that. When it happens, rather than try to escape, we realize, whoa, something's happening here. I think I'll sit down in my warrior position and I'm gonna turn toward it. What does this sadness really feel like? What are the thoughts? Oh, depression, my old friend depression. I think I'll just sit in the middle of it and turn toward it and see how awake I can be. Or worry, here's the worry. I'm going to pause and turn toward the worry as a phenomenon and experience it as non-judgmentally as I can, and to feel what it is, and also to notice how it works. One description of worry is there's a future, which of course there isn't. I mean, it's only now, but we can create a future, and these horrible things are going to happen, and this is going to happen to me, and this is going to happen, and then we can get our fight-flight system all wound up, and then I have to do something. And then I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and it gets in this closed loop of worry. and there's no space in which in its extreme, oh right, I am the infinite love of the universe, and there's no problem anywhere. Right? That of me which existed before I was born still exists, and there's no emergency. That's one of the things I really like about it. I was very involved in early 1970s. I did a master's in environmental studies, and I got very depressed for that and other reasons. Because in 1971, the world was really falling apart. And it's accelerating, it's getting more. But I got so freaked out about it that I became just completely obsessed. And then it was early, before I'd done any therapy or before my meditation was maturing at all. And I didn't have any way to put it down. So of course I just smoked a little weed. Not very helpful to freak myself out like that. So, the future. What if the mind were to get clear enough that you could notice, oh, these are thoughts. And these thoughts are imaginations occurring in the present moment, and they have a bad outcome. And look what it's doing in my body. Then worry is seen for what it is, which is a class of thoughts. It's a habit. It's a something that happens in the present moment, usually unconsciously. And then as soon as it starts being seen, we realize, oh, that's not even myself. Those are just thoughts. And we start relaxing more. We start letting the worry go. And then we use that futuring mind. We can still imagine futures, and we can still be very efficient. We can actually take part in things. But that getting lost in our anxiety is a really difficult habit. And there's, of course, it's built right into the body because it's served us well. So there's suffering. And then there's the second noble truth. The suffering is the first noble truth. The second noble truth is there's a cause of the suffering. And that cause is I'm unwilling, unable to accept life like it is. I want life to be constant pleasure, or I want life to have no pain. I want life to have stability. I don't want my loved ones to suffer. I don't want there to be another war. There's always been wars. That's one of the real disillusionments of my lifetime. I see you smiling, Doyle. I so thought in my 20s, my idealistic 20s, that my generation was the one that was going to put an end to war and social injustice. And I really believed that. John Lennon and it wasn't true. It's not true. Doesn't mean I can't continue to work toward loving each other and sharing better and doing something about this ridiculous injustice around so much wealth being in the hands of so few people. My wife Jennifer showed me this morning a little YouTube video of Bernie Sanders 40 years ago as the mayor of Burlington in Vermont. Same guy, same hair, same comments. So, there's suffering, there's a cause. What's the cause? Well, my leg hurts and I won't accept it, there's fighting it. There's this mood, I won't accept it, there's fighting it. This is happening in my relationship is blowing up and winding down, and or something. One of my kids is really sick, and it hurts enough that the kid is sick, but there's this. I won't accept it. It's not right. I should have done something different, or my parents should have done something different, or somebody's done something wrong because my child is in this terrible duress. Well, fact is, my child is in this terrible duress. And we've all done the best we could, and it's a crappy circumstance, and I'm suffering. So there's the two arrow story from the Buddha. Here's one arrow, which is the painful things of life. And here's the second arrow, which is, it shouldn't be like this. And this one is where the real suffering is created. And then, it would be bad to stop here, wouldn't it? Life sucks, and then you die. Here, I've reminded you of all think about the really crappy things in your life, and then let's go play. But the Buddha made this amazing discovery, which is that if we're willing to turn toward the suffering and really open to it, suffer consciously, and then look at what's causing this suffering, which is the craving for pleasure, get rid of pain, and to become something new and different, then something different happens. Something miraculous. It's ecological, but it's he called it nirvana, which is the diminishing of the craving for things to be different, and the kind of natural cooling out that happens, and there's relief. There's relief, quenching the suffering. I've had the privilege of doing counseling psychotherapy for 40 years, and also had a tremendous amount of love in that way with myself as the client. And what's it all about? Sitting with someone who is capable of loving us and sharing our pain, and having them stay stable and loving and compassionate, and we get to grieve the grief and feel the anger and deal with the confusion and realize, oh, right, this is all just my life. These are my memories, and these are the traumas that are emerging, and somehow or another they become much less suffering because they're held in a field of love and acceptance, and yep, that's real. When my son was in utero, he's now 36, has 2 sons of his own. I talked with a dear friend of mine, he's still alive, 94 years old, Don Nickerson. And I was worrying, can I be a good father? And he said, oh, Robert, don't worry about it. You're going to screw up your kids one way or another. He was right. He was right. They've had some therapy to do because of their father. Of course. So, there's suffering. If we dare to turn toward it and embrace it, and then stay open. What's my unenforceable rule? Why am I suffering in this circumstance? And so there's also the piece of it which is, oh, poor me, this shouldn't be happening to me. But then if we really feel our way into it and then open our hearts, we realize this same thing is happening to 150,000 other people on the earth at this moment. Because this happens to humans. And then there's the Eightfold Path, the working with our worldview and cleaning up our moral and ethical behavior. And that's hard, and we have to be so merciful with ourselves with that. I've seen it in myself, and I've met so many people over the years who have been imperfect around moral and ethical behavior. And didn't get it together the first time, and then it took a second try, and a third try, and a fifth try. And then we beat ourselves up because we're human. And so the task with that is to realize this waking up, this becoming a more loving human being, this becoming a Buddha is a lot of work. Siddhartha left home and went off, and he basically went to college and graduate school, and 7 or 8 or 9 years, full-time focused. So why would it not take us a while to get our act together? again, this question. What if remembering that we came out of nowhere, and then we're here, we go through somebody training, came out of nowhere, we go through somebody training, and then we disappear. And the mystics of all traditions say it's possible in this lifetime to remember that, to experience that, to get a taste, to get one little toe. Then all that it's about is remembering. And on the way of remembering, accepting us with all of our complications and difficulties. So I think I want to do this. I still have a little bit of the hanging on, well, you shouldn't sing a song in public until you're at least professional quality. And then there's the other, which is, well, could be good enough. You never know. This is a Mary Gautier song. I guess one of the lines that I didn't draw out very much is that along the way our hearts open. When we see how much we're hurting, think of Danny's sister, Danny. There's so much hurting, and we all need a little mercy now. My father could use a little mercy now. The fruits of his labor fall and rot slowly on the ground. His work is almost over. It won't be long. He won't be around. Oh, I love my father. He could use some mercy now. My brother could use a little mercy now. He's a stranger to freedom. He's shackled in his fear and his doubt. The pain that he lives in, it's almost more than living will allow. Oh, I love my brother. He could use some mercy now. My church and my country could use a little mercy now. As they sink into a poison pit, it's gonna take forever to climb out. They're in the chute. They carry the weight of the faithful who follow them down. Oh, I love my church and country. They could use some mercy now. Every living thing could use a little mercy now. Only the hand of grace can end the race toward another mushroom cloud. People in power, they'll do anything to keep their crown. Oh, I love life and life itself could use some mercy now. Yeah, we all could use a little mercy now. Oh, I know we don't deserve it, but we need it anyhow. We hang in the balance, had dangle between hell and hallowed ground. Oh, and every single one of us, isn't it true? Every single one of us could use some mercy now. Every single one of us could use some mercy now. Mercy now. For every single one of us. From the powerful megalomaniacs to the sick and dying, to the rich, the poor. We're all just here, do our dance, and then disappear. So let's make a circle and let the wild creatures out of the chute. Any of you in the outer circle who'd like to be closer to the center, come on in. Rebecca, did you have a good time? It's lovely to visit you in there. There's such a feeling of safety. Welcome. Did you have fun? Yeah? You ready? So, may I hold your hand? Thank you. And the hand? A finger? No? Okay. How about an elbow? Bump elbows? No? All right. Can I hold your cushion? Yeah? Okay. So, here we are. Human beings with hands, arms, hearts. Let's give the hand of the person on our right a little squeeze and wish them well. What would be your blessing for them today? And then the person on your left, give their hand a little squeeze. Remember, this person is on a journey through a lifetime. Wishing them well for the journey. And then to all beings, to those beings who are in your family and your friendship groups, your work, your parents, grandparents, great-grandparents. I'd like to invite to the altar of our hearts Ruth Dennison, Luba Ken, that whole lineage. May all beings everywhere, all those who take birth, may we all share in the merits of this practice. And there was some very patient young people. Whoa. And do we have designated the two of you? Yay, okay. You ready? All right. When you're ready. Let me check this. Okay, get close.
All beings be happy. May
All beings be happy. May all beings be happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Yay. This circle is just the cutest thing ever. All right. Are you ready for the ritual of blowing out the candle? Not yet, not yet. Woo, hold on. Now here's how it's going to work. I'm going to have everyone take in a deep breath. Don't get too close yet. And then I'm going to count, and then you're going to blow. So you have to sit. You have to be sitting. All right. I have the table. No hair on fire, okay? All right. Take a deep breath. What is your wish? And at home, what's your wish? 1, 2, 3, blow. Whoa, that was close. Well, please introduce yourself to your neighbors and come have a cup of tea, and we'll see you soon. Oh, yes. Hold on, one more thing.
1, 2, 3. Okay, hey, I'm sorry guys, one more thing. Please, if you're a volunteer team leader or if you are a teacher, please stay for the training at 1:30 for sign up. I'm ready for you guys. Okay.
Yay, thank you.